I went on a Tinder date a couple years ago with a girl named Brianna. Everything started out relatively normal. We met at a nice downtown restaurant for dinner. She was even prettier in person, and the conversation was flowing. However, it didn't take me long to realize that she was a super private person. For example, she would not tell me her last name, where she worked, or anything about her family. She made it clear that she was protecting herself, and honestly, I don't blame her. She took great interest in the fact that I was in seminary studying to be a pastor. That was nice because usually that's a deal breaker for most women, at least in my experience. Towards the end of our meal, she confessed to me something. "I have something to tell you," she said, "but please don't think I'm crazy." I braced myself for whatever she was about to say. She explained that she recently moved into a new apartment. She lived alone, which was also a new thing. Though she couldn't put her finger on it, she was convinced there was a presence of a sinister and paranormal nature in her apartment. She had hardly slept since she moved in because she was plagued with the constant nightmares and strange occurrences. I could see the fear and exhaustion in her eyes. She was quite sincere. "I can tell you're a nice guy," she said. She elaborated that I seemed trustworthy and had a calming presence. "I know how this sounds, but would you please come home with me tonight? Honestly, I'm just scared to go back there alone. I'm not looking for sex." I was really taken aback by this. It's not every day that I get asked to spend the night with a beautiful woman whom I thought just met. I figured she was either telling the truth or she picked a really odd way to initiate sex. Either way, the night would be interesting. We talked for a bit longer, and I agreed to spend the night with her. I followed her home, and when I walked up to our apartment, I was immensely struck with bad vibes. There was just something ominous about that place. I didn't want to freak her out, so I kept those feelings to myself. I said a quick prayer and followed her into the bedroom. She wasn't kidding about the sex. I tried my luck, but was met with swift rejection. We kissed and cuddled for a bit, nothing too crazy, and then she fell asleep. I just laid there for a while in the silent darkness, lost in thought. Sometime later, I 100% heard somebody walking down the hallway outside the bedroom. The door was closed, however, so I couldn't see anything. I was definitely frightened, but my curiosity got the better of me, so I went to go investigate. Slowly, I opened the door. I looked to my left and to my right. Nothing. I walked downstairs to check out the rest of the apartment. Nothing. I went back upstairs to the bathroom and the guest bathroom. Nothing. I walked out of the guest room again, which was right across my date's bedroom. I looked to my left and my right again. At the end of the hallway, I saw a black humanoid body standing there perfectly still. It was almost like a shadow, but I could discern that it was a three-dimensional figure. This figure was large in stature. There's no way it could have been my date. She was maybe about 5'1" at best. I ran back into my date's room. To my horror, she wasn't in bed where I left her. I called out her name, but there was just no response. I had just walked through the entire apartment, so it literally made no sense to me that she wasn't there. The bed was low to the ground. She couldn't be under it. The closet was open too, and it was packed with boxes, so I knew she wasn't in there either. The window was shut tight, plus there was a second story. It was as if she vanished. I grabbed my wallet, keys, and cell phone and ran out of the apartment in nothing but my underwear. The shadowy figure was gone. I jumped into my car and sped away. I never heard from her again. Her Tinder profile was deleted the next day, and she never responded to any of my texts. Till this day, I have no idea what happened that night. I also never went back to her apartment, mostly because I'm horrible with directions, and she lived in the next town over. This was easily one of the most terrifying, inexplainable things that I've ever experienced.
This all happened when I was 19. I'm not the best looking dude, so I never had much luck with women, and I ended up on Tinder. I wasn't having much luck there either until like the third month of using it, when a blonde woman named Katie messaged me. She was pretty enough that I just dismissed her as a bot. It wasn't until 3 days later that she messaged me again, which was odd, because bots almost never message more than once. I clicked on her chat and replied and then looked at her profile. What I saw was pretty generic, but definitely wasn't a bot's profile. We had been talking for like a month when she proposed the idea that I come see her. I was pretty reluctant as she lived nearly 8 hours from me by car, but I had to admit I really did like her quite a bit, and I had been thinking about asking her if I could come see her for a while now. After a bit more badgering from her, I finally said that I would take the drive to go see her. At this point, I had no reason to doubt she was who she said she was. We had video chatted every other week, called most days. I just assumed I got really lucky. Things did get a little weird on the way there, though. She kept messaging me, asking me where I was, and making sure I was still coming. At some points, when I took more than 30 minutes to respond, she sent me a slew of annoyed texts. Admittedly, I had chalked this all up to her being nervous about me coming to see her. I was pretty nervous too, so I couldn't blame her. I had a hard time finding the house at first. The directions she gave me were pretty confusing. It was back through a series of gravel and dirt roads and a large thicket of trees. I was still about midday when I came into an old-looking house. A window on the second floor was boarded up, but it didn't look abandoned, just worse for wear. Katie's red buggy that she liked to talk about was parked in front of the garage. I took out my phone and texted her that I was here. She only sent a smiley face in return. When I got out my car to go knock on the door, I noticed someone was looking at me from one of the second floor windows. I found it a little creepy, but figured it's just her father or something. She had told me that he comes to stay with her every now and again, so I ignored it and knocked on her door. She answered with a smile and even gave me a kiss, which surprised me, and I followed her inside. We sat down on her couch and started talking about our plans. When I asked her about her dad, "You didn't tell me your dad was here," I said. "Was that going to be a surprise, or..." Katie looked confused and told me that her dad wasn't here. I still thought she was keeping up the act, and I told her that she didn't have to keep pretending, and that I had seen him looking at me through the upstairs window. Katie went pale and said that we had to get out of here now. We both ran out to our cars. When I questioned Katie, she informed me that her dad wasn't there and that she had been home alone until I showed up. I called the police, and while I was on the phone giving the address, Katie gasped and pointed to the window where I had seen the guy last. He was looking at us from out the window again. I got a better look of him, and he seemed older and frail, almost like he hadn't eaten anything in a while. He left the window after he saw that we saw him. The police took half an hour to show up, and the whole time Katie was crying and mumbling about how she was an idiot for not keeping her doors locked. When the police finally did show up, one started asking me and Katie questions, and the other two searched the house. They came back out a little later and told me and Katie that, while they didn't find anyone, they did find that the back door was hanging open. Whoever it was had ran out into the woods, but the cops were sure the house was empty. After the cops left, Katie asked me to stay the night because she was too scared to be in her house alone right now. I gladly did, and we slept downstairs on the couch, as Katie's bed was the room next to the one the man had been in. Katie had also brought out the shotgun that her father had given her, but she never used. I told her it was fine, the man's gone, but she insisted, saying she'd feel safer if we headed out. I'm glad she did. Later that night, I was still wide awake watching TV. Katie had somehow managed to fall asleep. From the kitchen, I heard the sound of the doorknob being turned. At this point, I wasn't even scared, I was just pissed. I flipped on the light in the kitchen and pointed the gun at the kitchen door, and there he was. The guy that had been in the house before was standing on the other side of the glass door. He looked shocked, and I'm glad we had locked the door. The man unfroze and yet again ran into the woods. I woke up Katie and told her what happened and called the police yet again. When they arrived, they did a sweep of the woods and found no one yet again. They told Katie and me that it'd probably be a good idea to stay somewhere else for the night. Me and Katie said our goodbyes. She was going to stay at her friend's house and I was going home. I left a little after Katie did. I was on the phone with my brother telling him about what happened. My headlights were on. As I was talking, something caught my eye. That fucking man was standing at the corner of the house just watching me. I gunned it out of there and didn't even bother calling the police again. But I did text Katie and she said she was going to call them again. I don't think Katie ever even went back to that house alone.
I just came out of a relationship and felt like a bit of a casual dating would be fun. So I went on to Tinder. I made it clear to a few people that actually matched that I spoke to I didn't want anything serious. Just a dinner date or a pub night here and there. I matched with a really cute guy. Let's call him Pete. He had just moved to my city, also wasn't looking for anything serious. He just wanted to meet with some people and see some local spots. The first night we met up at a well-known tapas bar. I chose this place because I had a few friends that were waitresses and bar staff there, so I felt safe meeting a stranger here. He was on time, we had a nice chat, really cool guy on the first impression. We spoke about work, to which he responded that he's a software developer, but he's just started in his freelancing career. He stays now that he's moved up here, and he said that he's sharing a place with some friends. Rent is quite pricey on this city, so it made sense to me. He asked where I lived, and I told him that I'm lucky to have my own one-bedroom apartment in a quite nice, popular part of town. Mostly thanks to my parents that helped me save and give me a portion of the deposit money for my 21st birthday, which I invested it and grew until I had enough to put down on a decent deposit. He then offered to drop me off at home, but I said no. I'd prefer to Uber myself home. He asked if this was because he's going to meet someone else after him. I laughed because I genuinely thought it was a joke. The next time I saw Pete was about 3 days later. He said he knew he was fast, but he couldn't stop thinking about me, and he wanted to see me again. This time we met at a different restaurant. Also one I chose because I went to school with the owner and knew all the staff pretty well. The place is a bit more pricey, and he got super annoyed with me for ordering as much as I did. I couldn't understand why, since I insisted on paying for my own stuff both times we met. That night, same story. Let me drop you off at home, please. Again, I said no. While we're waiting in the middle of this conversation, he gets a call. He stepped away, but I could hear from a fair amount. No, I think we're gonna stay with you again. Yeah, I'm with her. Don't worry about it. Okay, I'll be home soon. So now I think he's chatting with his roommates or maybe his mom. But I don't ask. He comes back to our table. Please, I insist. Bad things happen to women that Uber home late by themselves. I'd feel better if I could drop you off. Not having the energy to argue, I tell him, fine. I'll put my address into his GPS. As soon as he got me home, he messaged me and tells me he'll be picking me up in the morning to go for a picnic. I reply I actually have some cleaning to do, but again, he insists that he'll see me at 10. Come 10 a.m. the next morning, best believe he's right outside my apartment. I get into his car, and he leans over to kiss my cheek. I notice that his breath stinks. Obviously, I'm a little grossed out. We have our picnic. It's quite nice. He tried to kiss me a few times, but I avoided it with everything in me. By about 4 p.m., I tell him that I really want to go home, and the park we went to is about an hour and a half drive from my apartment, so I couldn't really Uber back home because it would be the cost of a fortune. I fell asleep in the car in the drive back. When I woke up, he asked if we should finish the rest of the bubbly we got for mimosas up at my apartment. I said to him I don't want to, and he just snaps. He raises his voice and says something along the lines of, "What are you hiding from me? Just be honest. Why are you so desperate to get me out of your apartment?" I was so confused, I actually just kept quiet. He dropped me off, but I could see his car from across my apartment for about half an hour before he actually left. About 5 minutes after he left, he knows that he's home safe and that he thinks he's starting to fall for me. So naturally, I'm freaked out because I made it clear that I didn't want anything serious, and he said he felt the same. I said to him that if that's the case, I think we should take a break from hanging out with each other. About 5 days later, he messaged me and asked if we can go out for dinner again. He found an Indian cuisine place he knows I'll love. I tell him it's cool. He should send me the address. He tells me that he'll pick me up, so 7 p.m. comes around. He tells me he's downstairs. As I go down to meet him, he's standing at my gate. I press the remote control to open the gate, and he walked inside to meet me. Show me which one is yours. I'd love to see how you live. Not hi, not how are you. That's his opening line. So now I'm naturally unsettled. I say to him I'm starving. Could we go for dinner and I'll show him my place at a later stage? At dinner, he gets a call again. This time he didn't step away. Pete. Yeah, I don't know. I can let you know about 10. He turns to me. Am I sleeping by you tonight? Me? No, I don't know. I have work tomorrow. Pete to me. Yes, me too. Then back to the caller. I'll let you know, okay? Caller. No, you're not. Can you just get your things, please? Pete. And do what with them? Caller. Take them to that girl you're seeing. I'm done asking you. Now I'm sitting here in absolute shock and terror. What the hell is going on here? Our food arrives, and we barely speak. I say to him, why did you ask me if you can sleep over by me? We're not spending time together like that. You know this. He then spins his story about how he just wants to hang out and again, see how I live. I then say to him, very frankly, that I don't like having strangers in my apartment. He gets very touched and bill arrives. As per usual, I pay for myself and he pays for himself. I say to him, I'll get an Uber home. And he says, what's the use? I already know where you live. Let me drop you off. By now I'm already decided that this will be the last time I see him. I get back into his car and I reach for the jumper that I threw in the back when he fetched me. I notice the bag in the back of the car, full of clothes, toiletries, as well as a pillow. I don't think much of it. I don't personally drive or own a car, but I know my sister always has the most random crap on the back seat of her car. On the way home, he's dead quiet when suddenly he says, do you know how selfish you are? I've had no issues driving you around, but you don't want me to sleep over by you. I say to him that I've never had an issue with Ubering, and if he's so touched, I also have no issues with paying him what the Ubers would have costed me. I'm over this and I'm not even playing nice anymore. His phone rings again. Caller. Your stuff is at the security room at the gate, Pete. Stay with your girlfriend or stay with your mom. You're screwed for taking advantage of everyone like this, Pete. I don't speak to my mom. You know this. And he hangs up. Now I think this may be an ex-girlfriend that he needs to collect things from. Before I've had a chance to process what happened, he turns to me and starts yelling at me. I have nowhere to go. Are you freaking happy? You spoiled brat, living off mommy and daddy's money, getting driven around by me like I freaking work for you. My whole body got stiff with fear. I don't know if I'm going to cry or throw up. In my head, I'm just planning on how I'm going to grab my bag the second he stops and run straight for the cafe under my apartment. If you run through the cafe, you can get to a gate that takes you to the back of my apartment, and it works with the fingerprint access. There wasn't time to still find my keys in the bag, and I didn't want the main gate that I normally use to open wide enough for him to get in when I go in. He stops at my apartment, and as planned, I jump out, run into the cafe, run out of the back, through the little gate, up to the second floor. My apartment was on the 4th floor, and as I hammered on a neighbor's door, I went inside and told her and her husband everything that had happened, and asked if they would mind calling the cafe to explain why I ran through with no explanation in such a state. I blocked Pete and haven't seen him since. I'm still not sure what the case was. From what I gathered, he was basically homeless, and I think he wanted to get into my apartment to maybe sleep over there for a while. I'm not sure if the girl that kept calling him was also a Tinder date that let her into his apartment, and he just never left. All I know is that he scared the living daylights out of me, and I never want to see him again.